All guests on ZASLOW Show 2.0 brought to us by the official beer of the program, Johnny Cuba. European roots with that Caribbean soul, a refreshing German lager in a can. Pick up a six-pack for yourself. That's how you'll enjoy the weekend. We got a lot going on. Your local Sedanos, Presidente, Winn-Dixie, Fresco y Mas. Make sure you always drink responsibly. And, of course, don't forget Johnny Cuba's mantra, stay tranquilo. Nobody's forgetting our pal Ruthie Polinsky, who we miss very much down here, formerly NBC6, of course, now NBC Sports Chicago, where the NFL draft centers around the team that she covers, the Chicago Bears. First, though, Ruthie, really good to see you. Good to have you on the show again. How are you doing?
So great to see you. I'm sorry, I have a little bit of a cold, so I'm just kind of a little under the weather. If I have to mute myself to cough, I'll try not to spare all the listeners. But I'm doing so great. Things are always so exciting in this city. Obviously, it's been a historic, really, 2 years, I think, for the Bears. To have the number one overall pick 2 years in a row is unprecedented in a lot of manners, and especially with the way that things went last season and just kind of the way that they're building this team. It's just been so fascinating, and it's crazy to hear the reports coming back from the NFL Combine where everyone's talking about Justin Fields, and that's just so fascinating to kind of see how that plays out over the next couple of weeks.
So how long have you been there now? For like a year? You've been there for a year?
Yeah, almost a year. It'll be a year in April.
So now that you have a good lay of the land there, not that you didn't know before, I mean, you're a St. Louis girl, so you know Chicago, but now that you've been engulfed in the city, where do they rank their teams as far as fandom goes?
Oh, the Bears are always the Bears. I mean, it's always the Bears, which is so cool in a city where the Bears haven't been good, for a long time. And I think like you want to see your team's NFL team, your city's NFL team kind of rule the land. And that's really what it is here. I think when the Bulls are good, I mean, it's Bulls probably come in pretty close number 2, but the Cubs, I mean, it's a wonderful sports city. It's hard to rank the teams. You're talking about baseball 12 months of the year. You're talking about football 12 months of the year. You're talking about basketball a lot of the year. And when the Blackhawks are good, and the way Connor Bedard has made a terrible team so fascinating and so interesting, it's just such an amazing time to be in Chicago, where it feels like, other than maybe the Bulls and the White Sox, the teams are all ascending. So it's hard to rank them. It all depends on the time of year, but I can tell you right now, if there's a Bears story, that is our lead.
Are you keeping an eye on the Panthers and the Heat right now?
I am. I love Bill Zito. I love that man. I am so happy for him. I think he's done such a wonderful job making hockey important. I saw a little bit of his press conference yesterday where he got emotional about the extensions that those guys signed and how guys want to stay in Florida and play hockey in Florida. That just wasn't a thing before he got there. And I'm so happy for him. It's so cool to see the success play out. It's wonderful. And then the Heat are the Heat. I mean, let's go, baby. I mean, every year it's like they keep you locked in and they keep it interesting. They go through their roller coaster of a season and everyone panics, and then they're always in the mix. And so it's been cool to watch from afar for sure.
So Ruthie, I'm invested in what's going on in Chicago. I'm on ESPN radio 4 or 5 nights a week. And so we talk about the Bears and the number 1 overall pick every day. All right. Yeah. So I'm in it. From what I understand, though, so explain this to me. Apparently, what the Bears should do with the number 1 pick and the Justin Fields situation, this is a very divisive topic among Bears fans, right?
It is very polarizing. There are fans that are keep Justin, build around Justin, trade the number 1 pick, get more pieces around him. And then there are people that are saying you cannot pass up this opportunity to upgrade at the quarterback position if you believe you can do that. And so I think that's really where people are scared, because the Bears have not done a good job of evaluating quarterbacks coming out of the draft in their history. Of course, this is a new regime, but I think there's a lot of scar tissue for this fan base when you look at the way that quarterbacks have kind of cycled through this city. I will personally give you my thoughts. I love Justin Fields. I think he is a wonderful person off the field. He has everything it takes to, this is like New York. It's hard to be a quarterback in this city, the way the media is critical and the way that people come at your throat on at press conferences. And, you know, you don't play well, like they're going to let you know that they don't think you played well. And it's a tough place to be. And Justin Fields has handled it all with such grace and such poise, with the coaching changes he's been through, the offensive systems that he's been through, the situations that he's been thrown into. And I think last year you wanted to just see a little bit more consistency from him on the field. And you see these flashes of just spectacular talent and the way that he can move and the way that he can run, and even his arm talent. I think we saw spurts of it this year really take some leaps and bounds, especially with the incorporation of DJ Moore and the way that he was able to spread the field for Justin. I think you just wanted to see it more consistently, and you wanted to see it at the end of games and in the fourth quarter. And Justin just wasn't really able to do that this year. Now, you can make the argument there wasn't really that much around him this year either. They didn't have a center. I mean, they were cycling through centers that were, you know, probably not starting offensive linemen in this league. And then other than DJ Moore, they really struggled to find consistency at the wide receiver position elsewhere on the field. And then Cole Kmet is probably your other big target at tight end. But they didn't really have a true lead running back, and the left tackle position was kind of in flux. So you're seeing the development of the right tackle in Darnell Mooney, but he was a rookie. So there's still a lot to put around the quarterback, which I think you can feel a lot better about after this upcoming season with free agency and the draft that's coming up. But there is the argument that there wasn't that much still around Justin Fields, and you want to see what he can do with, you know, if you go and draft a Marvin Harrison Jr., or, you know, when you get a center in free agency. So I think, you know, there's these two polarizing sides. Now, I am in the camp of I'm not getting paid millions of dollars to evaluate quarterbacks coming out of the draft. That's not what I'm good at. If they believe that Caleb Williams is an upgrade, to pass up on the number 1 overall pick 2 years in a row, it's hard. That would be really hard to do, I think.
Well, yeah. So let me ask you that. Like, how much of a factor do you think it plays that they also passed on the number 1 pick last year?
Yeah, I think it's huge. And you look at, obviously, Bryce Young wasn't exactly exciting, but you saw CJ Stroud. I mean, right. You missed out on CJ Stroud. So, yeah. So those are the things I think people are looking at and saying, if you can get a CJ Stroud, if you can get someone in this draft that's going to be better than Justin Fields, you have to do it, because you passed up on it last year. And so, you know, it's tough, because I do think there's a portion of this city that just truly fell in love with Justin Fields for all the right reasons. But now it's just kind of in this interesting time where you can't, hopefully you can't go wrong, right? Like, if you continue to put pieces around Justin Fields, you should be a better football team. If you draft Caleb Williams, you should be a better football team. So I think it's just going to be so interesting to see how it all plays out. Now, what do you do with Justin Fields if you do draft a quarterback? That's the other big mystery.
Well, is there a scenario where they keep Justin Fields and draft Caleb Williams?
I think there is.
Wow.
I don't know, if you aren't happy with what you can get for Justin Fields right now, there's going to be a desperate team that needs a quarterback, you know, at some point during the season next year. So I think it would be tough, and I'm not necessarily a fan of that. But I do see a situation where if the Bears are not happy with the compensation of what they can get for Justin Fields, and it's kind of, you can kind of feel that right now, that it was Justin Fields that was dictating the quarterback market, but now everyone's talking about Kirk Cousins. Yeah. So if Atlanta doesn't want Justin Fields, where does Justin Fields really fit? I don't really see him fitting in New England. Is he going to go to Vegas with his offensive coordinator that just got fired here because he couldn't develop the quarterback? So it's a really interesting kind of landscape right now for quarterbacks. And I think once Kirk Cousins maybe finds a landing place, then Justin's, future may come into clearer picture. But right now, I don't think the Bears are in any rush to move him. Now, of course, they Ryan Poles came out and said, we want to do right by Justin. We don't want to leave him in this gray area.
That doesn't mean anything.
It means nothing. You're going to do what's best for the team. So it's going to be fascinating.
Assuming that they move Justin Fields and they select Caleb Williams, why do you think it is that teams don't sit the first round quarterback anymore, that they play him right away?
There's so much pressure to be good right away in the NFL right now. And you see it with these coaching changes, you don't win, you get fired. And like, I think there's so much pressure from the owners and from the general managers to put their picks in the mix. And if they're not ready, then that's the coach's fault. So it's kind of an interesting cycle and the way that we view these teams. But you look at all these quarterbacks right now that are having success, other than, of course, CJ Stroud, who really feels like an anomaly. Pat Mahomes sat, Tom Brady sat, Aaron Rodgers sat, Jordan Love sat. I mean, there are all these people that really found value in not getting thrown into the mix because, when you come into the NFL, you're learning so much at once. You can't work on the little things except when you're out in the game. So, and wins and losses are the story of the season. So I wish we saw it more. And listen, I wouldn't be opposed to Justin being your starting quarterback this year. If you draft a quarterback, maybe not necessarily, I would be more of a fan of this if it wasn't the number 1 overall pick, because I just think that makes a toxic work environment for people. But I do think like there is so much value in like if you drafted JJ McCarthy and he sits for a year behind Justin Fields and there's like a really strong quarterback competition in the room, but at the same time JJ McCarthy is learning from Justin Fields' work habits and his leadership, and I just think that there's so much value in that, and I don't know how people can disagree. I think just when you take a quarterback number 1 overall in today's NFL, you're expected to throw him out there and have him win. And that's crazy to me. Now, what makes this situation different as well is that usually when you have the number 1 overall pick, you're the worst team in the NFL. That isn't the case for the Bears.
Yeah.
Who, they have Carolina's pick drafting number 1 overall. So there's a lot. I mean, Zaz, this is why I don't get paid to make these decisions because I couldn't do it.
And is this the dominant conversation on sports talk, like on ESPN Chicago every morning?
Every day, 670 The Score. I mean, it's Justin, it's the Bears. It's always going to be the main story. Obviously, I think there's a lot of conversation about baseball right now with spring training getting underway. The Bulls are so confusing. I mean, they're just the most confusing team, but an exciting team.
It's not that confusing. They stink. It's not that confusing.
They don't stink is the crazy part. I mean, they win. They play the most clutch minutes of any team in the NBA, and they have a very average roster, other than a few guys. Yep. And they're staying relevant.
A good win last night in Golden State. They got lucky, missed layup. You got to make that layup if you're Pajimski. You got to make that layup.
Well, yeah, and also coming off of the crazy game against the Kings, against the Jazz, like there are a lot of just wild wins that team is going through, and they've been able to kind of keep their head on straight. Also, with all the Zach Levine drama, to be able to just kind of stay laser focused through all that. I mean, it's been really fascinating. The GM of the Bulls hasn't made a trade.
I know, in like several years. They're the only team in like the last 2 or 3 seasons that has not made a single in-season trade, right?
Wild.
Yeah, mind-boggling. Do something. Get up your ass. Do something. Make some kind of move. Right. Ruthie's a Michigan girl, so give me some thoughts on Harbaugh. Were you sad?
You know what? I wasn't. I was happy. I'm like a Chargers fan now. I mean, I will root for him, and there's no better way to leave than that, and I think, maybe his time was, he wanted to get back. It was, you felt that for a few years that he wanted to get back to the NFL, but I would have been upset if you were feeling that interest to get back to the NFL and then you weren't winning, but you still won at Michigan. And now you can go kind of do your next chapter on a really good team and kind of in LA and California, like back in California. And I think Michigan's in really good hands with Sharon Moore. I feel good about that. And, with JJ leaving also, it just kind of felt like, okay, time for the next wave. And Jim brought us back. I mean, when I was in Michigan, we were bad. I mean, we were a bad team, and it was crazy to be the University of Michigan with the history and to not win.
Who was the coach when you were there?
Brady Hoke.
Whoo!
Yeah. Yeah. So he got fired my senior year. Jim Harbaugh got hired my senior year at Michigan. I'll never forget it. I was at dinner with a bunch of my girlfriends, and Jim Harbaugh was having dinner right after he got hired. He was having dinner at the back corner of the same restaurant we were in, and he was going to have to walk by our table to leave the restaurant. My friends were like, Ruthie, don't say anything. Don't say anything. Don't embarrass us. And he walks by, and I'm like, we're so happy you're here, coach. And he like stopped and talked to us for 10 minutes. I mean, he was, and his wife and the whole gang, it was really phenomenal. And then I've had opportunities to interview him over the years, like through different stories and that I've done. And so anyways, love Jim. We'll always root for Jim. He brought us back, and I'm excited to see what the next chapter it brings.
That was like when I was at Florida. I was there right between Spurrier and Urban. We had Ron Zook while I was there. We had Zook. And right when I left was when Tebow began playing. Wow. Right when I left. So very similar. We caught the Zook years there.
Yeah.
Give me some thoughts here on Tua. It looks like the Dolphins they're releasing a bunch of guys. We don't know if they're going to be able to keep Christian Wilkins. It doesn't look like it. But all signs are pointing to they're doing this because they need the money to sign Tua.
It's a wild time in Miami to be a Miami Dolphins fan right now. I mean, we talked about it last year that the Dolphins were in win now mode. You had to win now because you weren't set up to win in the future. And so I think you're seeing the repercussions of that in a lot of ways. And it's going to be fascinating. It's like the page has turned. I mean, no Xavier Howard, no Jerome Baker, no Christian Wilkins. Like those were like the Dolphins, those were the OGs. And now it's kind of like, what is this new era going to look like? Of course, you still have your core pieces on offense. But I think you need more. And how are you going to get those pieces? So, a really interesting time. It seems like, Tua's going to be there and they're going to pay him. And if you can have a team around him, then I think he's shown that he needs that as well. So you're going to need a good defense too. And I don't know how you're going to do that.
Now, Ruthie, I know you're a very busy girl. Are you watching any movies or any TV shows lately? What are you into? Have you finished Netflix?
Have I finished Netflix?
There's still some things there for you to watch, right? You
haven't finished everything. No, I have not finished everything. So I just watched, this is a very girl answer of me. One Day. Have you watched it?
No, is it a show?
It's a show.
No.
It wrecked me to my core. It's a love story. It's a love story. I think every millennial girl has watched this show, maybe Gen Z too, but it is the most beautifully told story. And it's basically a one day every year. And they walk you through, and it's about a relationship, a friendship that grows over years. And it's a beautiful story. It wrecked me. I'm not that serious. I also just finished, I'm all caught up on Love is Blind.
Okay.
Stupid, all right. But I trashed. Right. I watch it. What else? What else have you been watching?
Any movies? Are you going this weekend to see Dune 2?
I'm not. No. I can't tell you the last time I was in a movie theater. That's kind of sad.
Really? I don't know. It's not that sad. People don't go to the movies as much anymore.
I love
the movie theaters are. I love the movies too, but these days the movies are like, it's about the blockbuster movies. Otherwise, people don't really go to the movies anymore if they're not seeing a blockbuster,
Right. Like, I really wanted to see Barbie in theaters and I still haven't seen Barbie. How about that?
You still haven't seen it?
Still haven't seen it. It's embarrassing. But I did.
My wife hated it. I think it's funny. My wife, she couldn't get through it. She hated it.
Interesting. I've heard people, some people that were off the bandwagon, very strong-willed, strong-minded people to, not be on the bandwagon. But when I was in New York, I saw 2 Broadway shows recently.
Ooh,
I saw Chicago.
Okay.
Coincidentally.
All
Chicago
right.
girl now. And I saw Wicked, which was like my 5th time.
Oh, yes.
You
see, there's a Wicked. You see, there's a movie coming out.
When I tell you I've never been more excited for a movie, that one I will see in theaters. I feel like
it looks
that's
great.
It looks like it's going to be phenomenal. And so many people are like, there's no way it's going to be better than the musical. And I'm like, we can't talk about it that way. It's too different. The music is going to be there, and the music is what makes the musical so wonderful. It's going to be a different experience, a completely different. It's almost like futuristic, like techno, sci-fi.
It looks very cool.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I like the other Wizard of Oz movies, So like I dig the I mean, like when I was a kid, was it Return to Oz? I loved Return to Oz. Have you ever seen Return to Oz?
No.
Oh, I loved Return to Oz.
I'm an OG Wizard of Oz girly. I had my ruby red slippers growing up. I was like,
Can I tell you, when I was a kid and I would watch Wizard of Oz, when the Wicked Witch of the West would come on the screen, I used to have to hide behind the couch. It was so scary to me.
Love it. Love it.
Ruthie, excellent job. Excellent job. Tell everybody how they could catch you, even your fans here in South Florida. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I currently host a show that we do on NBC Sports Chicago. I'm one of the many hosts for this show. It's called Football Night in Chicago. We do a 30-minute football show every night on NBC Sports Chicago. I do some fill-in work for Channel 5 here, NBC 5, and I report and I anchor. And then I'm also getting to do some sideline for the Bulls these days, which has been truly a dream come true, getting to do sideline. I've always said my dream job was to be a sideline reporter, so finally getting some reps at that. And that's just been everything I hoped it would be and more. And to do it for such an iconic franchise organization as the Bulls has just been such a blessing. And all of our stuff on NBC Sports Chicago, except for obviously the broadcasts, that all goes up on YouTube. So follow our NBC Sports Chicago page. We always have fun stuff on there. And yeah, and that's that. But I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks starting next Friday because I'm getting married.
That's right. That's right. Ruthie is getting married in a couple of weeks. So all your fans down here, you could send her on Twitter. You send her congratulations. What is the nerve level right now? 1 is not nervous. 10 is super anxious. What's the level right now?
0 nerves. I think just a little overwhelmed, like with some of the final tasks, the last 2 weeks, everything kind of just like, comes together, so you kind of got to get the tables organized, make sure everyone's coming, the details, all that.
Are you a bridezilla?
I'm not a bridezilla, but I'll tell you what, I am marrying a groomzilla.
Wow.
He is the most wonderful man in the world, but this man is a groomzilla, and I love him for it. But he's just been a little. He's funny because he's so focused on the next task at hand. So he's had a lot of work things over the last couple of months, and now it's, I think, setting in like, holy bleep, I'm getting married in 2 weeks. So he's kind of like a little bit in a panic, but we got all his, we got his tux, we got the suit, we got the shoes, we're good. We got the wedding band, we're checking off the list. So he's wonderful. We love him to death, but he is a groomzilla. And we will call him that forever.
All right. Congrats on all of it, Ruthie. Really good catching up with you.
So great to see you, Zaz. Thanks for having me.